Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Foundry virtual event. We are very, very excited today to have you join us for our Nuke TD Roundtable. Hello, Nicola, the first one to chime in. Welcome. Welcome back, I should say. Today, we're going to talk to we have 4 customers here today. We're going to talk to them. We have a lively panel discussion planned. We're going to ask them questions. What makes a TD? How did you become a TD? What are some of your challenges? We have some questions that we have ready, but please, for you guys on the call, if you have questions for the speakers or for us, put them in the questions tab. We'll try and answer on the chat, but it gets a little crazy. So please put all your questions in the question tab that you have for our speakers, and we'll answer the rest of the chat ones as we go along. So my name is Jen Goldfinch. I am responsible for Foundry events, which are now virtual, which we are very excited about. I'm joined by my colleague Christy from London, who's responsible for our Nuke family of products, and our wonderful customer panel, who Christy will introduce shortly. Just wanted to let you know, we've been doing our virtual events. It's actually our 1-month anniversary. We've done about 8 virtual events this month on a variety of products. They're all on our foundry.com events page. If you missed any of them, I recommend taking a look. There was some really good Nuke ones recently that were fantastic. We are doing about 6 virtual events a month for the Nuke fans. It's about 2 a month on Nuke. We go back and forth a little bit on the numbers, but we're planning some great stuff. We have a VFX supervisor panel next week. We're working on a CG supervisor panel. So there's some really great discussions coming up, as well as some product presentations and customer presentations. We're also working on a mini trade show schedule for the first week of June, where every day we're going to have a presentation about one of our products. So you're going to see some information coming very shortly there. And if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it. We really do. So please email us and let us know if we're doing something right or doing something wrong. All feedback is welcome. So if you want to keep up to date with Foundry, on our website, we have an Insights Hub. That's where we post all of our customer stories. At the bottom of that page, you can hit subscribe. There's a quarterly newsletter, so I swear it's only 4 a year. And you can get information on our events and our activities and our stories. Also, if you're a social media fan, we have a lot of content that we're working on right now. So a lot of it comes out first on social media. So please feel free to follow us on any of those platforms. We're usually Foundry team, so we're not that hard to find. We have some great recent content for the Nuke family that we're really proud of. There's 5 new articles on the Insights Hub that I referenced from our website, including a really great profile on how Weta created the doubles with Gemini Man, so that was fantastic. So take a look. We've also released what we're calling Workflow Wednesdays for Nuke. So every Wednesday, there's a short video, and my colleague Martin produced this week's video. So take a look. You'll find it on our YouTube page under what we call Close Up. So take a peek. Virtual events, I mentioned our VFX Soup panel. I forgot we also have a really great one with Thomas Wall, formerly the Mill and Stiller Studios, who's doing something on Nuke Studio for starting a small business, especially in a remote working economy. And we just had a great skill up with Courtney Price, former Foundry employee and freelancer in London, and Ben McEwen did a presentation last week on Python scripting. All of these are available on demand on our virtual events link. Take a look. And the final one that I want to share with you guys is we just released some really cool training from Shahin Tusi, another London-based Nuke expert that I suggest you take a look at. It's really cool. With that, we also want to let the community know that we're still supporting our amazing industry partnerships. So if you're out there and you want to have a mentor or you want to mentor someone, take a look at what Access VFX is doing. They're doing some great work about helping share expertise in the community. So they've got podcasts and online events. They're fantastic. I highly recommend you take a peek at what they're up to. They currently have operations in the US and UK, and they're looking at expanding more globally. We're also proud supporters of the Academy Software Foundation. So for all you TDs and developers on the call, that's really important to us, as well as we support the open source community. So we have teams of people who are contributing to the open source projects within ASWF, including, of course, OpenEXR and OCIO, which are near and dear to our hearts. And we do love our friends at SIGGRAPH and VES, and we're doing our best to work with them during these times to make sure that we can help support their organizations. Anyone is looking for a job, I promised HR I would do this. We are hiring VFX experience, so we have engineering experience and artist experience available. Take a look at our website. A lot of these jobs are in the UK, but some potentially can be remote. So take a look at what you see, and someone should get back to you from our HR team. Oh, this one's exciting. So we just got to add this one today. This is Christy's slide. Would you like to talk to it, Christy?
I can add this one. And I will just say shortly about some of those open roles. There are some very cool projects on the Nuke team that bridge 2D and 3D. Very exciting stuff. And so if anyone is interested in helping, help us, please come shape the future of Nuke, and especially thinking about 3D, not just in Nuke, but how that extends across the product family. It's quite exciting stuff. So please check out those, check out the job specs.
All right, back to the next slide.
Back to the beta, yes. So this, we thought this would be a good group to put this out to. So we are looking for more testers to join our early beta program for Nuke. Some of you may know we've changed our development cycle to be releasing much more frequently, doing up to 3 feature releases in a year, which is quite a lot. And it means that we need a lot more user testing all the time than we ever have before. So if you're out there with some experience in Nuke and access to a commercial license with maintenance, fortunately, but maintenance or beta testing is a benefit of maintenance, so definitely limited for commercial licenses. But if you would like to apply to join the group that gets the betas and alphas and previews of designs way before they go to the wider user base, there's a form here. It's quick and easy to fill out. We'll post this in the chat as well, so that you can find it and click on it. And yeah, we're looking forward to having some more of your feedback as part of our development process.
Awesome. Well, I think we're ready to get started, Christy.
Excellent. So here we go. Awesome. So now time for the panel, what everyone is here for, to hear from our amazing TDs who are joining us from across the UK and North America today. I think we're all the 3 different countries represented, so that's pretty amazing. So to kick off, we're going to have them each introduce themselves, and this is presented in alphabetical order. It's not a sign of favoritism or anything like that, but we'll jump right in to Clementine. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
So hello everyone. First, it's great to be here, and it's funny to see all of these people from everywhere, even if we are home. So I'm currently a Nuke TD and Pipeline TD at Cinesite Montreal. I come from a compositing artist side, and I slowly switch step by step into the TD and technical part, which I enjoy a lot, as I like to see what's happening with the tools and the software and the workflows. So yeah, it was a natural switch to that. So I start at Artefix School in France. Maybe some of you know about it. I finished it with a short movie, which it was really interesting to do because we basically see a bit the overall spectrum of a production in overall, from writing the screenplay to presenting it, basically. So it was great to see all of that. And after I worked as a compositor at One of Us in London. And so as a compositor, and slowly I switched to TD, Nuke TD, because during the work I saw some stuff I was interesting to work on and be like more officially and taking time officially on that, on the workflow and the compositing side. So yeah, it was great because they give me the opportunity to switch into this position, which it wasn't like nobody was doing that at the time officially. There were a lot of great people, compositor and supervisor, who did TD stuff. So I tried to, like manage a bit all of that and put piece together. So it was really interesting for that. I did a lot of, and I still do a lot of show setup. So preparing the plates, color workflow, be sure, process of reformatting and the color workflow through the client specification is working. I do that a lot still now without really thinking about it. I guess I'm better in that, and so I do that a bit naturally.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's good now. Like, it's really interesting what I'm doing now at Cinesite. It's way more complex than One of Us or what I did before, because it's bigger. So it's really cool to learn stuff here. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, Deke.
Hi, I'm Deke Kincaid. I'm a senior pipeline supervisor of a Digital Domain. I've been there for just under 5 years now. Previously, before Digital Domain, I actually started as a compositor. Actually, I started as a generalist and then moved into being compositing. I started with Shake and used a little bit of Flame and used a bunch of other compositors. But as a large majority of us all do, we essentially did our transition into Nuke 2005 through 2009, somewhere in that range. But yeah, I worked at a huge amount of visual effects studios. I freelanced all over the world. I actually worked for the Foundry for just over 5 years. So at the Foundry, I did a wide variety of different things. Essentially, the Foundry started with just Nuke when I joined, and they had plugins, and then they moved on to adding all these other products. And I was always jumping onto all the different new products and kind of learning them. And then I left the Foundry and went to Digital Domain. I've been there, as I mentioned, just under 5 years. At Digital Domain, we worked on a huge amount of features. This is just in the time I've been there, and I know I'm missing probably like 20 other projects. But as we all like to joke, Marvel is our biggest employer. They employ all of us these days. We all do superhero movies, but we get to do a lot of other cool stuff. So at DD, we also do, we have a whole commercial group. And I actually manage the pipeline for commercials in addition to the 2D. Essentially, I'm in charge of the 2D pipeline, the texture pipeline, and then all the workflows for commercials. So what does a pipeline supervisor do? Pipeline supervisor essentially leads a team of TDs, a mix of staff and freelance. So I have 8 TDs, 5 Nuke TDs, and then I have a mix of other commercial and TDs for textures, the texture side of things. So pipeline supervisor is about 50% product manager, 50% software development manager. Half the time I spend meeting with all our clients. Our clients are in-house. Our clients are way more technical. So the nice thing versus Foundry, at Foundry you have to actually have a much more finalized, baked product before you ship it. But when you're working in VFX, you can be a little more loosey-goosey. You can release stuff that's way more beta than you would ever allow out of the Foundry. Like Foundry, that you need something extremely, much more polished. And I always have to explain that to people because people are always like, "Oh, why didn't the Foundry just get this out? Why don't they just get that out?" I was like, you don't realize how much stuff they have to go through and how many bugs that you guys just deal with at Digital Domain, like stuff in extreme, like what Foundry would even just consider like not even an alpha version is like a shipping product at Digital Domain. So yeah, so I spend half the time essentially gathering requirements, but we always like to joke that in pipeline, it's essentially like you're fixing an airplane while it's flying. That's what we always like to joke. And it's, so you're always like replacing this part and that part and hoping you don't, crash into the ground. But luckily, it's not life or death. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't work. It's so I don't know if the airplane analogy always works, but so yeah, so I meet with a lot of people, and then my second half is also then managing my team of developers and also coding when I have time. When I have time actually coding, but I have very little. I have a lot less time to actually code. I work into the evenings doing that after my kid goes to bed, fixing those things. And then also I always like to joke, learning where the dead bodies are, learning where essentially where every little part of the pipeline is. Like someone will come and say, hey, we have this thing from 15 years ago where, I remember it kind of did this, and you have to go search for it because there's a lot of gizmos and stuff that's literally older than actually Nuke from the Foundry. It's like there are gizmos that are from from 95, 90, sorry, a little later than 95, early 2000s. But you'll see people's name, and sometimes people that actually still work at DD.
Cool. It's like well, you've been on this whole journey, already. Now you're the one leading the team, hiring the TDs, getting it done. It's really awesome. All right, Nick, tell us a bit about you.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Nick Constantino. I'm the senior lead compositor and Nuke TD at Saddington Baines. I came into the industry in a bit of an interesting way, really, I suppose. Started off as an industrial design engineer, and then moved into the world of CG that way. Basically, you have, when you design a product, you then need to actually show imagery or animation of it. So I was self-taught up to that point, and I managed to land a job at Framestore. I joined the digital imaging department, which was a small department, part of commercials, which were starting up back then. I was there for 6 years, and a lot of the stuff we did there was product imagery. So a lot of stills, a lot of animations of essentially like a huge capacity, huge volume of products you're selling for marketing material. So we have our main clients were sort of Microsoft, Nokia, Nissan. And then after that, I moved to Saddington Baines, which is where I am now. I've been there for 4 years, been involved in quite a variety of projects, pharmaceutical, luxury brands. But the biggest sector that I'm involved in is the automotive side of things. We do a lot of car configurators, and that's probably, again, the biggest chunk of my work. A car configurator essentially is a marketing tool, which is it's used online for people to configure their cars before they buy it. They might want to look at, try out different options, wheels, accessories, car paints. So I head up the 2D side of those configurators. There's a lot of essentially studio and environment shots, 360-degree spins, panoramic interiors, and other photoreal shots where you can swap out. You can change the color, the accessories, the interior fabrics, the lights, the wheels. So that's what I'm involved in at the moment, and it's a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of designing workflows, improving the existing pipeline, developing new tools. There's a plethora of new tools that we've created over the time. So it's a constantly evolving beast, really. The car configurator. Saddington Baines has been doing configurators for 10 years now. And it's always being improved. So I work with a team of some freelancers come and go. There's another technical compositor who I work with, and I work very closely with our pipeline team as well. So between us, we're always evolving the configurator into something that can handle a lot more than what it ever could at the beginning. Yeah, so another side of things that I do at Saddington Baines is other high volume, what we call volume asset creation. So high volume, highly customizable imagery. We do a series of short films for Honda, showing off the technical features of the cars, and it's all about consistency. Similar to the configurator, it's just about consistent imagery, and it's a real challenge. Creating tools that can produce this sort of volume of work at that quality.
Very cool. And yeah, here's the slide that was about the configurators. Yeah, configurators I think are super cool, and it's something where yeah, I think you wouldn't, outside of this world, you wouldn't necessarily think about Nuke being used for that. But it is a very,
yeah,
but it's very cool challenge, like we were saying before the call, because it's so much about just data processing and automation. Like you're basically building a system that can operate without an artist, which is really cool. So
well, it's a
different kind of challenge.
It's about making it automated enough that you can then focus on the creative side of things.
It's great. That is like the goal, isn't it? The overarching TD theme. Excellent. So last but not least, we have Zach joining us from New York today.
Hi, I'm Zach, joining you from New York. Any questions? All right. So, yeah, I've been working in the industry in a lot of different roles. I started at a small commercials boutique, kind of just doing pipeline, IT stuff, editorial, a lot of like odds and ends. Pretty much doing whatever was needed that they didn't have somebody specifically there for. Eventually, I branched off and I began my freelance career as a Nuke compositor. And during that time, I managed to permalance for a year at Framestore New York in their commercials division. So Nick, I wonder if we had crossed paths at some point. It's possible if you were there around 2012.
Maybe in the kitchen.
Anyway, after enough of that, I joined Method. I was kind of picking up I should say at Method, what we do is lots of, again, the superhero movies. In Method New York, we're primarily focused on commercials. Short form, we have a design department that's phenomenal. And recently we've been getting into, they have a pretty awesome games division that's kind of just beginning to pick up. Real-time VR and virtual production. It's all the buzzwords these days. But so specifically back to me at Method, I spent a few years in pipeline putting out fires, of which there were several. Putting together Nuke tools for the general pipeline and bespoke tools for whatever the show's requirements were for however many shows it was on. Dabbled in effects for a bit. And now I do general show TD and R&D stuff. And spend a lot of time doing color-related things. Color, it's a black box to a lot of people. And when there are problems, a lot of times it's difficult to communicate what the problems are. So I spend a lot of time figuring out why people aren't able to see things the way they expect to and what went wrong when. It's a lot of sleuthing work. It's interesting. And I just put together like a quick list of some things I had done fairly recently. Lighting comp templates for campaigns and renders. For a period of time, there was a certain car insurance selling reptile whose commercials had my fingerprints on it at some point with their comp templates. Relighting workflows back when mental ray was the ray tracing option and the alternative was to wait or interactively do stuff with AOVs. We put together some really cool stuff. Let's see. Open Color IO stuff. Yeah, I'll talk about that later. And is also a great utility for communicating with sticky notes and backdrops and whatever exactly for other people, just visually what's going on in a given show, and how like interdepartmental workflows behave. And I found it quite useful just for communication purposes. yeah, color stuff, projection stuff, lens stuff, Nuke stuff. That's me.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So should we get into more some of the questions from the audience and have a bit more of a discussion here about all these aspects of being a TD, which is really, there's so much here, so much to talk about. So to start with, so there's one great question here coming from Ben. So your live answer. And this is one that I've heard as well from artists thinking about, dipping their toes into being a TD. And this is, as a comp TD, do you still get to work on projects? Or are you working on tools all the time? So I guess in terms of this group, it's probably mixed. So who here comp shots? Still, anyone? Yeah? Yes, here we go. From time to time, Deke says no.
Never have time. Actually, our TDs are too busy. They don't have time to work on shots. Essentially, if anyone who works on shots, they get sucked into shots and production never gives them back to us.
Yeah, so I definitely see that. I mean, so for you guys that do both, like, so for Nick and Clementine, what is your percentage and your kind of an average week time that you spend comping versus on the TD side?
Well, for me, sort of depends on the amount of work coming in. Last year, we had an awful lot of car configurators to work on. The plan was always that I was overseeing the workflow, overseeing the freelancers, troubleshooting. But at the end of the day, there was so much going on that I was just thrown right in and was doing just as much compositing as I was TDing. So I'd say it's probably 50-50 for me. Most of the time.
Me, actually, no, I'm not doing comp anymore because I guess bigger the company is, lower you will do other stuff than what you are doing, because there's so much work to do that, yeah, as Dickie said, it's almost impossible to go in a shot without going full time on it or invert doing coding and doing full time on code. But I did in my previous company, in one of us. It was a smaller one, so I had some stuff sometime in comp to do. And actually, one stuff was really interesting. It was a really little shots to do, just replacing something on the wall, some vegetation for the Tolkien movie. And it was interesting. It was not a lot of work, but it was interesting because I basically went to the shooting place, which it was in Oxford. I shoot my photo and texture I needed. And I did a little workflow to ingest them properly with neutralization and stuff like that, to go in a proper SCSCG color space and stuff like that. And after using it to do the comp of the shots, so it was nice because I did like the full step of shooting what I need to do the comp with the little tools inside. So that was great, but it was a smaller company, so. Bigger one, it's more difficult to do, multiple stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
The bigger the company is, the more work and the more specialized everyone is across different teams.
Exactly.
Do you feel like, though, in your in being a TD, like how beneficial do you think it is that you've worked as a compositor, and like how much do you bring that into the work that you do?
For me, it's like I wouldn't be Nuke TD without being compositor. Like I don't feel I'm a Nuke TD just as it's like a skill inside the skill set of a compositor or VFX artist in overall. I don't see a separation, even if it's separated when you're working, especially in big company or big production. But at the end of the day, we are doing image or car configurator, but we are doing a final project, and there is multiple way to do it, and some are doing more artistical stuff, some more technical, and just do teamwork and tada.
Yeah.
But definitely the comp background is really great to know what's happening, what you should do, what's the global goals.
What did the rest of you guys think about that? Anyone have other thoughts?
I agree. I feel that like the line between, you know, TD and artist has always been kind of blurry. In fact, the very definition of TD is kind of nebulous to me. It's my job title. So like, what I can say is that, you know, whether I'm working on the artist side or the technical side, like anything I learned or experience influences the other. Like, you know, opposing muscle groups, you have to exercise both sides of. And I think, yeah, you know, one of the nice things about Nuke is that it permits you to create your own tools for your own workflows, and just by that kind of design, artists become TDs, and it's easy for TDs to become artists, you know. So I would say the two are not necessarily mutually exclusive, and I think a lot of like the actual, maybe that line I was talking about might be how dedicated one is to like messing with the shell or booking time to, you know, shop work.
Yeah, definitely. Here's another question, I guess, a nice follow-on from Noah, which is, what are the most important core skills as a TD? Like, what do you think, like the baseline, or I guess not even the baseline, like what is the most important thing that you need to know? Thoughts? Like, is it scripting, Python? Is it standards like color management or image processing? Is it how Nuke works? Is it communicating and problem solving? What do you think is the key things that you should be working on?
I would say how Nuke works is a major one, because that kind of encompasses everything. But, you know, knowing the semantics and, you know, the idiosyncrasies, how, you know, what a B stream is and how to, you know, concatenate transforms, how to keep things optimized. Knowing everything about Nuke helps. You can know everything. That's a good thing.
So be an expert on the tools that you're working with, I guess.
Yeah, and
I think
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say there's probably something that's not often talked about, is this sort of human element to it, in that you know, being a compositor as well means that I build a tool and then I'll use it myself, and then I'll see its shortcomings and I'll noodle away, improve it, you know, see where it's breaking down, and getting feedback from other compositors as well. It's like, is this working for you? Is this saving you time? Is it making your life better or worse? And essentially, you know, if you spend more time making a tool that it might make something faster, but it might actually at the same time make something it's more complicated to use, or you know, it might be a tool that's only used, you know, once or twice. So there's a trade-off between just building something that's cool and clever and does something, you know, brilliant, technically brilliant. But if people can't use it, or people don't like using it, or they need to spend ages learning how to use this gizmo or this template you've made, I think that's kind of like that's where, you know, you need to be careful, because I've seen a lot of tools which aren't intuitive, and I think that's important, making something that's, you know, good for people to use.
Yeah, and empathy for the user, right, is really important. Yeah.
And especially in Nuke, because Nuke is really simple. When you see it, it's just an art graph with some tool, and you put one tool after the other, and each tool is quite simple. You have some exception, of course, but so yeah, I totally agree with that as well. Like we have to try to be as simple as possible. And CG is really more complex. Whatever we say, it's there's a lot of stuff happening in CG, but in Comp and in Nuke, it's not so much actually, and you can do a lot of stuff with the basic Nuke already. So if you do stuff who brings complication and make everything more complicated, you're losing a bit the point, I guess.
Yeah. Right. So there's another question here from Jorge. I think this may be a good one for Deek to help start with. So this is a scenario where you have a Nuke artist who's interested in becoming a TD. So some experience in Comp, tending towards technical, learning Python. How what would you look for in an artist that wants to move from Comp to the TD side?
As you mentioned, you do need to learn Python. I mean, I think that's super important. The nice thing is there's so many tutorials out there, but it is important to also learn Python. I mean, learning Python in Nuke is important, but also just understanding Python outside of Nuke, learning how to do things, like even the most basic things of like, taking files, moving them around on disk, renaming them. That's like a very common task, and it helps you learn essentially the foundation of actually Python outside of Nuke. But really learning to use it outside and doing essentially tasks that you commonly have to do. But the big thing I would definitely suggest is figure out something you want to do that you want to automate, like something for yourself. Like that's the best way to kind of get invested in it and really get interested in it. But also you can go on to Nukepedia. There's so many examples on Nukepedia. You can go download and look and see how people are doing it. Use those examples. And then, obviously everyone just Googles everything. If you have any questions about an error,
Google is an amazing resource for anyone, developing anything, isn't it?
Yes.
Great. Anyone else have thoughts on this one? About what you need to learn when you're first starting out as a TD?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Please.
Okay, just to follow up what Becky said, it's I think it's exactly that. You should learn stuff if you have a need, and if you want to automate stuff, or because you are, it's boring to do something always the same or 50 times the same action or stuff like that. Try to automate that. Like even if changing 50 nodes in your node graph, changing the merge operation or stuff like that, it's 2 or 3 lines, but it's already good to learn the basics. And it's how you will really learn stuff about real action instead of just learning for learning, basically. I mean, it's my POV, but
start looking for things that would make your life better and just build them.
And because you are doing that, you will do tools and people around will be interesting on, you will share, you will improve, and maybe slowly you will begin to be more and more TD, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
I'd say once you start making tools for yourself to do things that you don't want to do, I mean that is easily the greatest motivator. I'd say another helpful thing is also learning to grok other people's scripts. Just as a Nuke script, kind of like a manifestation of a mindset plus a bit of anxiety, depending on how messy it gets. But once you start seeing how other people are thinking and working, that very much will inform how you think and work and put together tools that are, as Nick was saying earlier, usable and not just. Also, just sidebar, add tooltips. They're really helpful. That's one of the things I love. I love that about Nuke. Many tools they're just really well documented in the interface. That's something that helped me when I was learning it. So.
Hooray for tooltips.
Yeah.
So here's a tangential question. So we talked about Python already. This is a question specifically to you all about the percentage of time you spend using the NTK versus Gizmo's toolsets in Python. we can answer this one directly, or if you have any view on like how important is it to start learning, C++ for TDs.
Well, I mean, I can answer that quite quickly because I don't know C++ at all. So
that's probably the first question. How important is that?
Even on my team, like we only have a couple people that know C++, and only actually one person on my team like does active C++ development. The other people are kind of just learning on the side. They do a gizmo, or they take a gizmo, something that's not performant enough, and convert it to a C++ plugin. But it's we don't do it a lot. We probably have like 50 or 60 C++ plugins, but those are ones we literally built over 20 years. So
yeah, that makes sense. So it's nice to know, but it's not essential by any means to succeeding as a TD. So there's another question here where I'm trying to find it in the list and I'm struggling. So I apologize, whoever's question it is. We have many questions that have come in, guys, so a lot to choose from. But there's one question which I think is interesting, thinking about some of your backgrounds and how you've bridged departments. Like, how beneficial do you think it is to know not just Nuke, as Deke mentioned earlier, I think it was thinking about how you move files around, but is it beneficial to also learn other kind of tangential tools? So whether that's Katana for lighting or Houdini or Maya, like, is having more APIs in your toolkit, I should say, better than focusing in one area?
Well, I would say.
I guess it's also a question of how many people work on multiple disciplines to start with.
Well, I think, it depends on where you, like, what kind of a TD you are. I'd say it's reasonably important to be able to like know what to ask for and how to QC things upstream, as well as how to provide for how to deliver downstream. It's helpful to be able to single-handedly round trip whatever it is you're working on, assets or comps, what have you, through the various applications, and having enough of a even just like a basic understanding of adjacent disciplines, I think greatly informs and very much improves your tools and your craftsmanship.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the broader your knowledge kind of makes you can attack a problem in a number of ways, and you have a lot more to go on. If you know not just bits of software, but the more you know about photography and filmmaking and color and computer graphics, and how displays work, how computers work. I think all of those bits of knowledge definitely helped me, and I find the more I learn, even when it comes down to, because like I said, I came from an engineering background, so knowing how materials behave in light, or how products are manufactured, that's all helped me in knowing how to build tools essentially that can get an image out that looks right.
Yeah, that's true, especially about the CG. Maybe it's more the CG side, but when you do CG image, the computer is not reacting naturally like the real world. So you need to know how it works, and play with it to do maybe some no realistic stuff and sometimes realistic stuff. But knowing the difference and knowing how to play with that, I think it's really interesting. And as well on the production side, it's interesting. Like if you are doing a Nuke tool, but for lighting, it's obviously good to know what's happening on the lighting side and lighting department. Or if you do something for ingesting plates, you need to know a bit about production, about what's happening after with the plate, what usually you can do or what you can't do. So yeah, of course, every knowledge is great, but because you can't know everything, you need to basically know your limits, I guess.
Yeah, to prioritize, I guess, what you're going to learn.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good segue to talk about color and how color right now is a really big topic, right? And we're seeing a lot of, workflow being established in color and color being, more important than ever. What do you think are the skills that TDs need to know around color management?
So, with color, you can get really, really deep with it, and it's difficult to assess like how one person individually might need to know, like how in depth they need to know all. Like, I think TDs, especially in Nuke, should know like what ACEs is, and what chromaticity and luminance are, and beyond ACEs as well, like different camera workflows, like how an ARRI workflow is different from an ACEs workflow in terms of where grades are applied often, and same with Red, and Sony is effectively color-wise with just the K1 one. What else?
Yeah, so that makes sense. So to have a basic understanding, at least, of systems like ACEs, OpenColor.io, how plates go from the camera into comp, and how you can, I guess, make that easier, right? Because it is quite complicated, and more you can do to automate it or make changes transparent, right, to when they happen.
And also, there's a lot of acronyms in color science, which make it really, really difficult to communicate.
Just a few. Just a few.
And there's a lot of fear and anxiety regarding color as well. And something I've been looking at is I'm using EXR metadata to communicate chromaticity information. So that, so you have a linear plate. Linear could mean anything, Is it ACEs, ACG, linear X7 to 9, P3D65, so on and so forth. But if you have a mathematical way of just encoding the gamut in the plate that you're dealing with, and neutrals if necessary, it's a Foundry actually responded to a few tickets of mine and made it so that you can now write chromaticity metadata with the because it's words.
Yeah, and that is an excellent point. Please send in tickets. If you don't report the bugs and you don't follow up, we don't know to fix them. So please submit the tickets. It's always worth the time. Please do. Thank you to everyone on this forum on this panel that sends in tickets.
I think it's really useful to understand OpenColor.io, like understanding the configs and stuff. A lot of people don't bother themselves with that, but OpenColor.io has been our bridge between all our different applications for color, because everything is OpenColor.io these days. So you can get the same color in Maya, in RV, in Nuke, and literally everything out there. So it's kind of important to kind of just understand and grok how that config works, being able to hand modify it and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I guess just to follow up a bit, I guess it depends also what you are doing. I mean, in Cinesite, it's a big company, and not every TDs are working on the plates management or the color aspect, even if it's, of course, great to know it as a Nuke TD or compositor or even CG artist. But if you are doing, like me, I'm doing a lot of show setup and plate management. Of course, I need to deal with it. But yeah, of course, it will depend on what you are doing exactly in your role. But if you are working around Nuke, you will have the color subject arriving at some point sooner or later. It's a big one.
Worth understanding, yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we have 10 minutes left. Here's a question that is very timely of the moment, and that is advice for pipelines and studios and artists working from home, as well as TDs working from home. I think we can add to that one. How you guys, do you have any advice that you would share with others out there?
Maybe documenting and just making good documentation for any tools that you're writing, because I mean that's always important. But writing up with screenshots if necessary, yeah, I mean that's always something I know I should always improve on. It's probably even more important now.
And for artists as well, annotate your scripts. If you can't speak to somebody in person about stuff, it's really, really helpful. Do some cleanup.
And I don't know you guys how you are working, but we are doing code reviews. I guess you are doing that as well, like when you finish especially big piece of code or big piece of change, you do code reviews. So there is multiple way to do that, I guess. And you basically put it with some reviewer, and people can annotate, put some notes, some just discussion about what you did, and you can modify it. It's really, really interesting to learn new stuff or just find new way to do. And I discovered that here in Cinesite, and because I didn't really did it before, and it's really, really powerful. It seems maybe logical, but in code sometimes you can quickly fall into I did my code, it works, I push it down. But when you do code review, you can find some interesting new way of doing stuff or bugs and stuff. Yeah.
Great. Any other thoughts on this one, working remotely?
I'd say it's just helpful that Nuke lets you copy and paste stuff like into TextBuff. Like that's one of my favorite things about Nuke.
Ah, yes. The being able to send a Nuke script in text is pretty powerful.
Awesome.
Just move things around.
As long as you don't work in features and your copy paste is limited to 2,000 characters, which is fun. We actually had to write a tool to make it so it saves it to a place on disk, and then people have a tool that and it deletes them every like 3 days. So people have a list of cut and paste they can save to a certain location. Look, oh, here's a cut and paste from this person, and then paste it in their script because because of the funds with security and limitations of cut and paste.
Yeah, we have a similar thing with Nuke and Houdini. A tiny guy.
Very cool. There's a whole thread of questions we have here on Blink script. I know we said that this group is not primarily C++ programmers, but have any of you experimented with Blink script at all?
I've begun. It's one thing I wish I'd started looking at earlier. It's not very difficult. I mean, the API is not nearly as expansive as NDKs, I do not think. And learning how to think in terms of writing parallelizable and SIMD code, vectorizable code, it's a different way of thinking. And if you've used like NumPy, for instance, that's a Pythonic way of thinking in the same way. I would say don't be fearful of diving into Blink. It's really not that bad.
Great, not that bad. Excellent. It's a good place to start.
Well, no, C++ is very scary, and Blink is not C++.
It's very C. It's C-like. It's a good place to quickly iterate and experiment and learn C++-like language. Very, very, very similar. And because you don't have to go through the whole process of compiling, quitting Nuke, reloading Nuke. You're just literally, because it JIT compiles right there on the fly. It's super easy to experiment with. It's a really good place to just learn in general.
Yeah, I agree.
Very cool. Yeah, and there are some good resources that Foundry has now. From the 12.1 release, we added some more examples using, it's Particle Blink script, which is Blink script that works with particles. As well as there's some good videos that we started doing from SIGGRAPH last year with Mads Hagbarth, who is a fantastic Blink script developer. And he has great tools out there that you can look at and be inspired by and learn from what he's done. So here's another question, which is one that maybe this is another question for Deeg. And this is, what's the similarities and differences between being a TD and working in R&D? And is there motion between the two?
That's a good question.
Yeah. So
Because
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. I'll let you.
it's just a gray area, a bit like you have artists. It's a bit like you have artist and a ramp to TD and a ramp going to R&D, I guess. And you can do a bit of R&D as a TD. You can do a bit of TD as an R&D. And I guess in a smaller company, you can have a bit of both together. But yeah, I let you speak, Dick.
That's okay. So when I was at the Foundry, they have obviously they have the R&D group, and they have the actual software engineers. So there, I remember a lot of the people in the R&D group, they always joke that, oh, we're only in charge of the algorithms, and we let the I know they do way more than that, but that was and they let the software engineers deal with all the annoying work, the where the buttons go and everything like that, and they do the hard behind the scenes work. At DD, it's a big mix of things. It's some of our R&D people do that, but they get to a certain point and then they kind of pass it off the TD group to like do the finishing. They do, like TDs do the finishing and polishing, where the brain stuff is where the R&D is coming up with the algorithm to do this complicated thing with machine learning. They make the black boxes in machine learning. We just take all the black boxes and assemble them all together in machine learning and decide which stuff to plug into where. And because TDs with deep learning is almost like a compositor, because they're almost like nodes you're plugging in. And people always joke that, oh, they're just black boxes. You don't know what, you just stick stuff in and it gives you stuff. But the R&D people are the ones that actually write what is in those black boxes.
Yeah, actually, that's a shout out to this question, which is actually, I think, our most upvoted question, which is about machine learning and neural network based tools. So I guess for this group, experiences that you all have had, are there any experiences that you've had with machine learning and starting to experiment with that you can share with the group here?
Yeah, I've been exploring deep learning for a few months and have been wrapping my head around the Nuke ML server and Nuke ML client, which can be used for things outside of just machine learning and deep learning. Just general Python, if you have extremely optimized code, it's very helpful. Right now, the ML server, I think, on GitHub is using the first version of Detectron in like this Docker container, and it's kind of a little wacky to I should say it's easy to start using, but to one of the first things I tried to do is start upgrading to Detectron 2. And yeah, I shouldn't denigrate the work that's already up there. It's great. It's fantastic work.
Yeah.
A lot of times with like these newer machine learning and deep learning code bases, they are not written for distribution. They're written for kind of being executed within a specific Dockerized container environment. So a lot of times for visual effects production uses, you have to look into other people's code and like figure out how to adapt it into something that can be deployed within your studio environment. If you have a server that has GPU capabilities, you need to make sure that when you send something to the farm, which may not have GPU capabilities, that you don't have a bunch of things necessarily like consuming all the resources of the one machine that's capable of running these GPU inferences. And in terms of actual applications for deep learning, there are so many. It's such an exciting time. For anyone that wants to get into it, I would highly recommend the site fastai.com. It's a library and a course it's pre-course built on PyTorch, which is one of the leading frameworks. It competes with TensorFlow. And it's just a fantastic community, and it gets you up and started really quickly with like actual applications. instead of forcing you to learn like the lower level stuff first. So it gives you like a hands-on use. Like I built something that super reses facial features in very, very little time. And it was so satisfying.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential for deep learning for sure. And it is challenging. I think, like you said, the research team made a great start with the ML server, but there are a lot of challenges in distribution, right, of networks and how you make them useful, not just on that one machine connected to the server that can use all those GPUs, but to a whole team, so they can all take advantage of it. And especially when we think in Nuke world, cross-platform, there's a whole nother level of complexity. So there's a lot of the challenge in getting it from being, theoretically awesome in a moment to being, broadly adopted and useful.
And licensing restrictions. There's a lot of stuff that cannot be used for commercial use, which is disappointing.
And IP and training data and everything, right? There's a lot of challenges.
Yeah, we used a lot of machine learning for our face tracking software that we wrote internally. So, and we'll actually use Nuke to make a source of truth. So, for example, like you take all the face trackers, but you have so many frames you need to remove all the tracking markers from that it's extremely expensive to do that. Actually, have someone actually do that in Nuke. So we'll actually use Nuke smart vectors to create a version of truth version to train our system to learn how to actually remove them automatically. And also for be able to track without the tracking markers. So we use it for both of those. So we use it. Nuke is kind of an intermediate. We haven't done a lot with the ML server. We're still experimenting with a lot, but it's as brought up. There's a lot of things to it. There's a lot more to using it at a larger company and such. But we have someone that's working on it on the side here and there.
It's very clever the way it's set up. I will say that. Like, it's lovely that you can have a whole bunch of different services that just populate your node using the protocol buffers. It's so like actually coding something with it, you can get up and started with it very quickly.
Excellent. So here's another question going back to Python, everyone's favorite, Python 3. And for this bunch, he uses a lot of Python. How is the move toward Python 3 impacting you guys? Have you already started thinking about what that looks like for you and what you need to prepare for?
Well, it's up to the DCC vendors a lot of times.
I know, you're like, well, all right, Nuke, you tell us when. But yes. In general, are there any things that you guys are thinking about?
I would definitely check out. There was a pipeline meetup just recently where they actually went over the whole process. It was actually a redux from a SIGGRAPH talk. I'll get the link after the fact to send to people. But it was just it's a good kind of going over like what are the how far you should go. Should you maintain both 2 to 3 compatibility at the same time, which is what we're doing already, essentially in anticipation, and then constant testing, being able to constant, when possible, run CI/CD, constant integration tests to essentially test, even though you don't have Python 3, having it actually test the Python 3 to make sure what you did to make it compatible for 2 and 3 is compatible until we can actually test it inside of Nuke where possible.
There was another related question to testing around Python, which is about percentage of test coverage when you're supporting the 2 versions of Python. It's a very developer question, this one. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Do you need to run full test suites all the time, or is the strategy to break it down into pieces? Any thoughts? No.
I I was waiting for someone else. Yeah, we kind of leave it up to the TDs to do tests, but we definitely want to push it more. We're moving everything into GitLab right now. We're all on SVN, and we're actually moving everything into Git. And GitLab allows us a lot, a little more flexibility for doing those things, for running tests and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's important to test. Actually, we have someone that just took over our testing platform to make it to make that easier, because it's been kind of a, because it has been so ad hoc. We kind of want to make it a little more straightforward and a little more consistent across the board. But yeah, but the thing is testing takes time, and testing's kind of a pain, and it's slow, and you can spend forever writing. You spend forever writing tests, and I mean, it's awesome that it prevents you from breaking stuff. But at the same time, when you have a production that's pounding down the doors asking you for something to get done, you're just like, I'll worry about it, test later. And then of course it breaks, a month later, or something else breaks with it,
Yeah.
So it's
definitely
important.
testing. Yeah, it's tough. It's a question that we're answering as well too, because we've been working on moving Nuke to Python 3, hoping to have an alpha very soon. Again, sign up for that beta so you get the first one when it comes out. And it's it's a challenge. It's the question we have to ask ourselves as well too, like how much infrastructure, how much testing needs to be in place and passing before it's good enough, which is, in our case, it's a lot, right? We want it to be as stable as it can be before it goes out and everyone starts moving their tools over. But it is a challenge, right? Because testing does take a lot of time. It's very resource intensive to do.
I would just add also, in terms of Python 3, like it's a good idea to keep your code as backward compatible as possible with Python 2. So like kind of maybe avoid, Python 3 idioms for the time being, just because for at least a few years, we're going to be in this kind of nebulous, Python 2, 3 world. And when you have half your tools stop working all of a sudden, or you have one dependency that is using Python 3 and you have to get someone to go in or fix someone else's code, God forbid. That it's helpful to be mindful. And same thing with like Python 2 stuff. You should know how Python 3 is working. Like, your print statements aren't using those little bracket things. And
all right, let's do 2 more questions to finish. So this first one is back to the audience of TDs here, from Kesavan, which is, how can a TD showcase their portfolio? Nick, do you have thoughts about this one?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It is a good question.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've actually managed to get where I am without really much of a reel at all. I don't know. I mean, I guess what the sort of areas that I'm involved in a lot of speak for themselves in terms of the sort of complexity. I've seen some good reels, some good TD reels that basically outline all of the great tools that they've done, and they have, in the bottom corner, they name the tool and they sort of do very quick sort of breakdown of how the tool works. But other than that, I don't really have any advice. I think it's a lot of sort of probably just explaining what you do and face to face and talking about it, because a lot of the time it's not very visual. You can have a few tools which kind of are self-explanatory and you can show them working, but a lot of the things that are under the hood and kind of do very boring tasks might save a lot of time and be very efficient the way they work, but they're not great to actually sort of show in any sort of portfolio. I don't know if any of the other guys have any other tips on that.
If there's stuff you can put on like a public Git repository, I know there are a lot of like, contractual issues with that a lot of the time, depending on where you work. But I'd say, and this is speaking as somebody who like doesn't do this, so but like, as much stuff that you can demonstrate and contribute to. I mean, I think being active in a lot of like the open source communities, just getting your name out there just by merit of asking questions and, you know, developing stuff, contributing into, you know, on like pull requests and threads and things like that, mailing lists. Yeah, I get all my work through word of mouth, which means I don't have to maintain a reel. But I think
blogs work quite well. I mean, a lot of people seem to have blogs where they're just doing some R&D, and, you know, it might not be any sort of tool that has any sort of use in a project, but it's like, you know, I thought this cool way of doing something, and you can just kind of spill your brain onto the page, and I think that's quite a nice way of.
That is nice, and there are a lot of nice TD blogs out there, because you can show it's the whole process from I saw a problem, like I see there's a problem, I'm gonna go try to make a solution. Here's the things I tried. Here's where it worked. Here's where it doesn't work. And whether it's useful or not at the end, like you've shown that whole process. And it's not just about, you know, the code skills. It can be, I think it's quite nice when you see, like again, Matt Tagbarth or Ben McEwen. There's a lot of really good ones out there that show that, you know, they're good examples.
And having a GitHub, it's really interesting. It's simple to set up, and it's good for you as well, just to save stuff and as well to share it. So definitely.
Yeah, when we interview people, we have them do an LSS tool or test. So essentially, just they're writing what's called the LSS tool, which is essentially just listing a folder full of files, and it just automatically compacts them into like with the Nuke file, when you go to file open and you have a whole bunch of sequences, and it compacts them all into groups and then sorts them. That's essentially our coding test that we give someone. It's not super complicated, but it kind of shows how your brain works. So a lot of our interview is not looking at a demo reel at all. It's chatting with them, seeing if we like them, and then giving the OSS test to essentially just make sure, you know, they didn't BS us in the interview. So
for interviews, oh, sorry, go on, Dean. I was going to say, like, one thing that we often ask just to see how they answer is like, what's your favorite text editor? And depending on how they reply, it's not so much what they say, but you can tell, you know, where their interests are, how passionate or not passionate. Just say, I don't know, like text edit, whatever you got. It's not a trick question, but it's a really, I think, fun way of breaking the ice and learning more about who you're interviewing.
Yeah, those are all really good points. And then my last question for you guys: what is the one thing that we can do in Nuke to make life better for TDs?
Add ACES CG to the color space node. Just do it.
I like it. You're ready. You're like, boom, here it is. This is my number one. ACES CG to the color space node. Got it.
And having more option in the viewer, maybe customization options, so you can draw lines or whatever guidelines and stuff a bit more easily. And as well, following that, the viewer process, having maybe more option, or I don't know, even like in Mari, having, you know, your ODT and your actual display separate, and little stuff like that might be useful. Or if you have a neutral workflow, neutral is better to have maybe an on-off option without changing your display. I mean, I don't know. There is maybe a few stuff to do like that, yeah.
Nice, great. Display options. Excellent. We're working on some of those, I can tell you.
I've also kind of been actively testing OpenColor.io too, like the work they've been doing recently. A, it's phenomenal. They're doing incredible work. Like OCIO2 is a huge upgrade. And B, there's a lot of concepts and paradigms that they're packing in that will allow DCC developers to kind of have more control over the interface, and just more options, and the ability to like dynamically adjust contrast and exposure, not as like as in like the way that Nuke has, little gain and gammas, but something a bit more robust, as well as like hiding color spaces and grouping them together. It's good.
We're also looking forward to it very much, for sure. Especially those developers working on Nuke Studio and Hero. They can't wait to really have that be finished and take advantage of it. All right. What about Nick and Deke? What are your the one thing we could do for each of you to make TD's lives easier?
I think I've got a document of loads of ideas when they pop into my head. But
well, we're just up the road, so you can come drop it by.
Yeah.
Well, when we're allowed to in the future.
Well, actually, I don't know why this popped into my head, but because like I said, we work in quite a sort of unique niche part of the industry. We work with Photoshop a lot, and you can read in Photoshop files, but if we could write a Photoshop file from Nuke, you have no idea how much easier our life would be. I don't even know what it would involve, but yeah, that would be something that would help our particular pipeline a lot.
Yeah, got it. Round trip to Photoshop.
The big one for us that I always bring up is the asset management API. So I know that's a very small audience that cares about that, but we care about it passionately. And then finishing OpenColor.io implementation, making it just completing that journey.
Yeah,
would be great to get it a little more integrated, and I'm sure with 2.0 that'll make it considerably nicer.
Definitely, that all makes sense. Wonderful. Well, I think great. Well, thank you all for the time. I think we're out of time for today. Thank you everyone who joined online and sent in so many great questions. No, we didn't get to them all, but we really appreciate all the great thoughts and ideas. And of course, thank you again to our amazing panel for joining us today and contributing all your thoughts around being a TD. Everyone out there, stay safe, take care of yourselves, stay creative, keep connecting to each other. We're alone together. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you on our next webinars. And of course, let us know the feedback on this one. And I think our next one up is the VFX supervisor panel next week, where I'll be back again for that one, along with some others from the Nuke team. So I hope to see you all then. All right, Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.